Okay, this is part 31, and I'm going to cover a lot of weird stuff in this one. And it's a difficult category to cover because it spans so many different categories in this puzzle. And also, I'm going to cover things that I found or missed in earlier videos. Like this is one of another double door clue. We have the double doors of this credenza here, and they're both partially open, so it's a double door clue. We have subliminal pyramid clues. This is Malcolm McDowell after his Ludovico technique. Another subliminal pyramid here. Also notice that the table is U-shaped, like the corona, like a toilet seat. This is part of the category that is going to be difficult to explain. In Kubrick's puzzle, we're giving the magic threads. So I've said this throughout the whole video series that we're following these magic threads and we're weaving them together. And how do we know they're magic? I mean, when you say they're a magic thread, what's so magic about the thread? Well, some of these threads apparently violate causality. I mean, how does Kubrick know that the day he releases his movie, November 22nd, 1963, is going to be the day that Kennedy dies? He doesn't know that, but somehow he knows that. And the way we know he knows that is when we look at his puzzle, when we go to this date. And this date is ridiculous. I mean, you have Oswald Morris. You have Dr. Strangelove is released the exact day, date, and year Kennedy dies. You have Aldous Huxley in his puzzle. He dies the day, date, and year that Kennedy dies. I mean, these are three direct matches here, day, date, and year in his puzzle to Kennedy's death date. And the movie release clue date is used numerous times in his movies. He's using it for The Shining. He's using it for 2001. He's using it for Dr. Strangelove. So we're using these release dates throughout this whole puzzle. So somehow Kubrick knows, Kennedy's going to die. So maybe, okay, let's just say, okay, somebody told him Kennedy was going to die that day, and he releases his movie that day. That's a possibility. But then you fast forward to Kennedy's son, John, and he releases Eyes Wide Shut on the same day, date, and year John dies. So the absurdity of this being a coincidence in 1963 becomes even more absurd when it happens to his son. And so we see this release date thing throughout the puzzle. It's repeated. So we know it's a clue set. So how did he know he was going to die this day? So it's weird, but then it gets even more weird when you find out that Scatman Crothers dies November 22nd, 2010. Actually, that's not correct. I believe it's 1984. He dies 1984. So Scatman Crothers dies November 20th. Now, Kubrick has him in his movie. He has him with the smoking gun, playing the piano, and the whole Scatman Crothers, King of Marvin Gardens threads. But how does he know he's going to die November 22nd, 1984? The movie came out in 1980, so somehow he knew, but you could say, oh, it's just another random coincidence again. But when you run into so many of these random coincidences, at some point, it's like he says in his interviews, the Freud and the uncanny. You have Terry Gilliam, you have Mae West, she's on the Sgt. Pepper's album. This is part of our clue. And she's Queen of Camp. So once again, it fits right into her whole Kings and Queens. And then you have Jamie Lee Curtis, She's born November 22nd. So you have all these people born November 22nd. And also Rodney Dangerfield is in The Killing. Now, Rodney Dangerfield is a comedian. So there's a comedian's category. He says to Joker, "Oh, you're a comedian, huh?" And he goes, "Well, they call me the Joker." So we have a category of comedians. So you have Rodney Dangerfield, you have Johnny Carson, you have Jackie Gleason. I haven't completed them all yet. I have not found them all yet. I have not even investigated them yet, but I know they're there. And You have Aldous Huxley. This is a Brave New World. This is the movie that Keir Dalia stars in, and this is his allegory to this man, the Brave New World that we live in. And we have the repeating date again, day, date, and year. These, I mean, how many of these can you look at and go, I don't know, that's pretty weird. How did he know Scatman's going to die 4 years before he does? He doesn't. Nobody could know that, but he does. And he somehow he's putting these threads, almost like he had an almanac from the future of when people were going to die and when events were going to happen. And he plans these things decades sometimes before they actually happen, and nails them every time. I have Billie Jean King. She's one of our puzzle people. She's born November 22nd. So when I say, how do I know what they're magic threads? Because he has some kind of magic knowledge that he can keep hitting these release dates and what are all these little clues that he puts in his movie, and they're all exactly lined up to the date that he's pointing to, November 22nd, 1963. So we have, like I said, it's almost like he had an almanac from the future. So that's weird. This is a good one. This is the C rock. They find this rock, and they alerted NASA that there appears to be the letter C on the rock. So it's a crock. It's a C rock, but it's more than that. So if you have a C rock, what is this thing right next to it? What would you call this right here? This would be a crosshair, a C hair. So this goes into the whole Bush baby, C hair, see you next Tuesday. He's telling you that one of his little clues that he left in the Apollo missions is some of these crosshairs are missing. Remember, we're always looking for what's missing. So NASA gets alerted that they found this rock, and they respond back that, oh, it's not really a sea rock. It's a hair that's stuck on the negative of the photo that when it was developed. So the sea isn't really there. And they release the photo again, and the sea is miraculously, it's missing now. So it's a sea hair. It's a crosshair. It's the thing that's missing in the photos is the crosshair. Now the crosshair also repeats in the puzzle as well, because we have Galileo invents the telescope. So we have the Galileo hammer drop on Apollo 15 to prove gravity. And you have the crosshairs in Oswald's rifle that they test after the killing, and they find out, well, the rifle wasn't really sighted in correctly. It was shooting the wrong direction. The telescope wasn't even sighted in. So this little sea rock, sea hair, ties into the crosshairs, which ties into the sea hairs as far as the Bush baby, Muffley Merkin. A Merkin is a bush, a fake female pubic wig. So this is, we have hairs, we have the rabbits are hairs, we have hairs, we have the redheads, we have hairs, the Muffley Merkin, the Bush baby, and we have the sea rock and the sea hare and the missing sea hairs. This one's interesting. Let me do a little zoom in here. And I'm never going to be able to fit all this on one video. I'm going to have to do this in multiple nights. But we have Richard Byrd as the recording artist. So there's clues in this. Why do we know that we're looking for clues in this? Because it's hand-drawn. These are hand-drawn letters. And there's actually mistakes in this, actually spelling mistakes in here. And the man that does this is Pablo Ferro. He's the guy that does this. So once again, we're always looking for the hand-drawn stuff. Handmade, whatever. The Mustang and the Falcon were not the only 1964 cars we saw at the World's Fair. Here's the double suicide Lincoln, at the fair on the Magic Skyway. You could sit in it and it would drive around on this track, no expense spared. I'm going to go into this now, even though I'm not really ready for it. But these are the clues leading me to believe, and this is my personal opinion right now, and I'm not 100%. I'm about 80% right now. And my opinion is that the atomic bomb is not really a real weapon. And the reason Kubrick names his movie How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb is because he realized at some point the bomb wasn't a real device. And this picture kind of proves it for me, because this is right after the explosion, supposedly. And we have all the top brass coming out to look at the explosion site. If this was really a radioactive site with, these deadly pathogens floating around the air, these men wouldn't be there. And we have Oppenheimer there. So he would know better than anyone what the dangers were. And here he is, this is ground zero. Look at that. You know, I don't know. This, you're going to have to watch more of the clue set. Like I said, I'm not going to get into this totally in this video, but this picture is the smoking gun. There's no real atomic bomb, because if there was, you wouldn't be standing here. You'd have to wait 50 years, before it really. Now, did Japan really get bombed? Oh yeah, it definitely got bombed. The cream pie fight. So this is our Dicks and our Cocks and our Peters and our Johnsons and our Woodies and our Wood and all the Dick clues. This is part of. And in the movie, in the beginning of the movie, you have the two planes flying next to each other, and it simulates head. You have the one plane is. Anyway, you'd have to use your imagination on that one. And here's the card table. This was covered in green felt. It's mentioned in interviews. He wanted everybody to know that this was a card table, that they're gambling. These aren't really real threats. They're imaginary threats. Also, you have Dr. Strangelove. He talks about the Doomsday device. And the whole effectiveness of the Doomsday device is to incite the fear in the minds of the enemy. And if you can effectively incite the fear in the minds of an enemy, he goes, it's very simple to understand, but the whole premise of the device is lost if you keep it a secret, and that's part of the movie. But so this is a card playing table. They're gambling. There's no real bomb. Here we have the hair theme. We're not going to get our hair mush. This hair theme is throughout all his puzzle. You have the hares, the bunnies. You have the redheads. Here's the melons memo. I kept referring to it. I hadn't showed it to you, but so this is our apple, orange, lime, watermelon, melons, plum. They're all balls, just like the ping pong and the football. So you can have a slice of melon, a slice of apple, a slice of orange, a slice of lime. They all can be slices. So this connects into the golf and the tennis. Like I said, these categories are not, it's a melon and that's all it is. No. The melons will also tie into, we have the large-breasted women. Like if you have Jamie Lee Curtis, a melon can be a watermelon, or it could be a regular melon, or it could be, you get my meaning. And the reason we're looking for these crude sexual things is he's telling you that you got to use your one-eyed monster to think about how to find these clues. This is why this puzzle was so hard to solve, because it seems so ridiculous. Like, why would they use cock, dick, bush, muffly, merkin? And that's why it was so hard to crack. And here we have the teenage queen. It's always kings, queens. So there may be a category of teeny bopper queens, but I haven't found it. But this is, again, we're using cards and chess and everything else. Here's the making of The Shining. And, we have clues into the mirrored lake painting again, and the pyramidal roof. Even in the making of, they're hiding stuff. Here's the theme of watches, and you sold me a crummy watch, and why don't you shove it up your ass? This, I think, is the connection to Pulp Fiction, where the guy shoves the gold watch up, or is it? Yes, Pulp Fiction, which shoves the watch up his ass. And so we're being clued into time. There's a video, and I'm not going to play the whole thing. Where is it now? Hold on. That's not it. Kubrick's Time Doors. I left a link to this early in the video series. I don't know how many people are really reading all the comments I make, because I do put quite a few of them down there. But this is a video, and you can find this on Sean Fella does it, and it's awesome. And it just basically goes through all the time that the word time is said, and it turns out it's 237 times. So if you think this stuff is random and Kubrick didn't plan it, think again. This is beyond the obsession to do stuff like this. And really, I watched this video 4 times and found new stuff I hadn't even found in it. And of course, it goes from time, so let me give you a little sampling here.
Time.
So we go from time, and then halfway through this video, it changes into doors, or somewhere in here. It changes to doors. So when I said it's always the double doors of perception, and I talk about the Bombay doors and Slim, the ex-matador slash rodeo clown, and the bomb, one says, Dear John, and the other one says, Hi there. Well, Dear John is the Dear John letter you get from your girlfriend when you join the Army or Navy. And then Hi there would be something a prospective prostitute would say to a John. So they're both John clues. And also they're clues to a prostitute and a John. So Kubrick gives you several prostitutes in his movies and Johns. You have Full Metal Jacket. He has the Vietnamese prostitute, and Eyes Wide Shut. You have the redhead prostitute, and I'll make a list of these. But I believe that we're using prostitutes and Johns as part of a way to hop from one movie to the other. So when we find Trading Places and we find Jamie Lee Curtis, born November 22nd, her first movie is Halloween, which is already in the puzzle. We see the See You Next Wednesday poster, which is a link right directly to this movie right here, Dr. Strangelove. No, I'm sorry, right to 2001: A Space Odyssey, when Frank Poole, his father, says, See you next Wednesday in his video. Once again, it's a video, one way. It was a half duplex video recording. It wasn't a telephone call. It was very similar to Tricky Dick Nixon's. It was full duplex audio, half duplex video. In 2001: A Space Odyssey, it's one way video audio. There's no duplex at all. So there's millions of layers of clues in these, but I suggest watching this movie because you'll see doors that I didn't even mention in my puzzle. And this guy's got some good stuff. Check out his stuff on this page. This is Time After Time, starring Malcolm McDowell and Mary Steenburgen. Malcolm McDowell actually marries Mary Steenburgen, and it's starring David Warner, a redhead. So, and Mary Steenburgen is a redhead, I mean. So this movie is alchemical, and it already has Malcolm McDowell, which he's linked into Kubrick already. So keep that in mind. These two were married. They're in this movie Time After Time, based on H.G. Wells, who's a redhead. And H.G. Wells is in our puzzle. And the oddest thing about this movie, here's another clue set I found recently. We're looking for mashup movies. Like if you think about the Peter Sellers Pink Panther movies, they're not Sherlock Holmes, and they're not the Green Hornet. They're a combination of Sherlock Holmes and the Green Hornet. So it's a mashup of two different genres. So when we go to Time After Time, we notice that it's not really H.G. Wells' book. It's H.G. Wells' book meets Jack the Ripper. So we already have Jack D. Ripper in the puzzle, so that matches. So I'm not going to go into this movie totally, but believe me, it's alchemical, and it's linked into the puzzle, and it's just, more than anything else, it's a link to time travel, which is an ongoing theme with this puzzle. And I'm going to try to show you that in this one video. I don't know if I'm going to have enough time. So here's, once again, we've got the clocks and the time. He's saying time all the time. When Nicole Kidman is interviewed after he dies, she says, the most important thing to Stanley was time. So it's midnight and the stars and you. He's hitting you over the head with time and the Gregorian calendar and the Julian calendar and dates and birthdays and holidays. The triangles, they made it. I saw an interview where they talked about how they came up with this design, and Kubrick loved that it was a triangle. So when you look at the Masons and, if you look at the Masonic symbols, you always see the Pythagorean triangles hidden in the pictures, in all the Masonic artwork, because he was essentially probably one of the first persons that could prove we don't live on a ball. So he includes the 3-4-5 triangle, although I don't think that's quite a 3-4-5, but it's a subliminal triangle to Pythagoras. Here we have ball paper. So we had the tennis ball and the ping pong ball, and this is pretty funny because it's like ball paper. When you watch the moon landings, you really were looking at a screen, and then he either taped a ball on the screen, or I don't really know exactly how he did it, but so we have the shiny ball paper. Back here, this is another clue. We have the dueling pistols, just like we had them in Barry Lyndon. Duels is a theme that we're looking for. Like Admiral Byrd, or I'm sorry, Robert Falcon Scott and Roald Amundsen were in a duel to get to the South Pole. I'll make a list of these. This is Robert Oppenheimer and his famous I Have Become Death. And here's the god, I forget the name, and it's in its multi-armed form, and he talks about this. So Robert Oppenheimer, we know, is in the puzzle because he shares a birthday with Jack Nicholson. And it also turns out it's a holiday, and it's Earth Day. And I'm not going to cover Oppenheimer in this video. I'm going to do a whole video on him by himself because he really deserves a whole video on all the clues that this man was able to impart before he died. There's JFK's flat Earth map right in his office. He knew. Here's some color clues, bizarre color clues, where he switches these two foods in between scenes. The moon rovers left no tracks, so it's a snow track. You know, there's no tracks. Another pyramid clue, the monolith clue, the flat black finish. Here's another Bible clue. You know, we have Nazareth, the band. We have the Adams probe, Ken Adam. We have the apple. We have the snakes. We have the Barbara Eden. We have the Laurel Gardens. We have you can suck a golf ball through a garden hose. We have I made lists of these before. So it's just another Bible, and the firmaments, and Psalms 19.1, and von Braun's gravestone, his headstone. This is another I can walk. So you have small step, giant leap, long jumper, high jumper, I can walk, moonwalker, spacewalker, skywalker. You know, it's a theme. Blade Runner. I've made lists of these before. This is kind of one of the main themes that can connect you to another movie, or at least give you a suspicion there's a connection to another movie. Like, if just because you find Blade Runner doesn't prove Blade Runner is part of the puzzle. But when you find Blade Runner and the Ennis House and Harrison Ford and a redhead and Joe Turkel, you go, okay, it's connected. This one's really good here. This is a projection. Let me show you this one. This is the Bond projection, okay? And also you'll notice when you go through these, you'll go up and down, although like they're trying to hide it now, I think. And like here's the Adams projection. So we had the Adams probe and Adam and Eve and Ken Adam and the guy that writes Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxies. The answer is 42. His name's Adams. So you find more people. You know, here's the butterfly projection. So they have a little diorama in The Shining in the living room in their apartment of butterflies. There's also a Robinson projection, you know, which we have Jackie Robinson already. We have the Bond projection. We have the heart-shaped Werner von Braun. We have von Braun. Braun means brown. So Werner von Braun is what you should be hearing. It's just like Charlie Brown and Garrett Brown and Molly Brown, and it goes on. I made lists of these of the Browns. And of course, you know, the azimuthal equidistant is in here somewhere. I don't know exactly where it is, but so when you see this picture, this is the Bond. This is a clue to the Bond projection. And how many people would even know that? And you know, when this movie came out, probably very few. You know, would recognize that this puzzle was about flat Earth and would know that what this is representing. Here's Steenburgen and Malcolm McDowell. They were a couple. They got married. Here she is again. Here she is again. She's been in numerous time travel movies now. I'm not going to get into that right now. Here she is in Back to the Future 2, I think this is, or 3, one of them. And they change the outcome of history and save her life. And, let's close this. Now, this is interesting. So we go to Back to the Future, which I'm not going to cover in this one. I'm going to cover it in a different video, but we're going to hit parts of it anyway. This is Eric Stoltz. He's a redhead. So he was the first Marty McFly as a redhead. Also, we see, what is his name? The kid that's in Lord of the Rings. Elijah Wood is in this. Elijah Wood is in Back to the Future, his first movie. He plays the shoot 'em up game in the diner. So he's alchemical. Eric Stoltz loses the role, but they got their redhead. They needed a redhead in this role, and they didn't have one, but they put him in anyway. So it's a way of putting a redhead in a movie that wasn't really in the movie. And he's still in the movie, by the way. They leave him in and there's a couple scenes where he's actually still in the movie. This is the movie Time After Time. Like I said, it's alchemical. You know, they visit banks and they talk about money and time travel. And of course we have, there's always, anytime this puzzle is, they're going to put Jess in it. And here's Kubrick ready to light up looks like a whole box of cigarettes. He's going to light them all up. Peace is our profession. Peace is not their profession. War is their profession. They need war to make money. And it's a business. And that's how it works. This is Oppenheimer. I don't want to get into it right now. So here's Joe Turkel, Lloyd, the bartender. Here's Joe Turkel, Mr. Tyrell in Blade Runner. Now, we already know Blade Runner is connected to Kubrick's puzzle through the Ennis house. So the Ennis house is made from Mayan blocks, Mayan-inspired blocks. So where does Dr. Tyrell live? Well, he lives in a giant pyramid at the Tyrell Corporation, And it's even Mayan looking it's a stepped pyramid, just like the stairway in Clockwork Orange. The steps and the stairways, they're stepped pyramids. This is Peter Sellers. He plays 3 parts, and he talks about, which I mentioned earlier, about how the power of the doomsday device isn't so much the doomsday device itself. It's the fear in the mind of the enemy that is the powerful thing about the doomsday device. But of course, it's useless if it's kept a secret. So this is one, and in my book, this is one of the clues that the atomic bomb isn't real. It's real in your mind, and that makes it powerful. But in reality, it's not real. And one of the big reasons I say it's not real is we haven't used it on anyone yet. Aside from Japan, we used it on, but it's never been used anywhere else. And just statistically, we should have accidentally dropped one and ignited. I mean, if you read up about atomic disasters where they actually dropped bombs accidentally, and it's ridiculous some of the accidents they had where B-52s ran into their refueling planes and lost wings and crashed with the bombs and all these different accidents, and no one's ever blown one up by mistake. It defies all odds. I'm not ready for that. Okay, maybe if I can get enough of the pictures together. So this is the picture of Malcolm McDowell with the vampire teeth. And it took me a little while, but I started investigating. I never watched vampire movies, so now I have to learn about vampire movies. Well, it turns out this man here, Christopher Lee, which is the Lee category, Jamie Lee and Lee Ermey and Lee Harvey Oswald, and it goes. I made lists of these. This man, Christopher Lee, is like Mr. Vampire. He's been in so many vampire movies, it's ridiculous. He plays the man with the golden gun. Here we have the golden matador. This matador is designed by Jackie O's fashion designer, and we see it fly in the movie. So flying cars is a category, and we see flying cars in the Blues Brothers. So this man is a connection to the vampire teeth. These teeth here look very much like the teeth he wears in his movies, and they really only look like his teeth, so it's weird. Kubrick was able to find something unique about this man's vampire movies and copied it. So this is a connection to here. It's a connection to vampirism, There's also a connection to Christopher Lee. I would say he is the Mr. Vampire. This is the picture of the Uncanny magazine here, where the old camera took a picture that it couldn't possibly have, but it worked, and it saw the old carriage on the train tracks. So this is another connection to Freud and the uncanny, which I mentioned earlier. When you find November 22nd, and you find all these people were born and died, and how could he have known that? It's uncanny. This woman here, Adrienne Corey, she does the first full frontal nudity in a movie for Great Britain, I believe. And correct me if I'm wrong. I read that in two different places that she's the first woman that did in a movie. Now, I'm not talking about porn movies. I'm sure there were frontal nudity porn movies, but we're talking about frontal nudity in a regular movie. This was a big deal when this happened. People were like, oh my God, she bared her breasts. And it was just like, the Queen was like, up late at night, didn't know what to do because breasts were being seen in a movie. But anyway, and of course we have the Masonic black and white, checkerboard flooring and the pyramids flooring, and she's a redhead, of course. And I'm going to go into her. She's in a lot of interesting things. Here we have them sitting on the pyramidal stairs. This is another subliminal pyramid. We have the pyramid here. Here's Mary Steenburgen with her son from Malcolm, I believe. And then her new husband, Ted Danson. Here's the cream pie fight. You've seen that. Here's the picture I'm looking for. So this is what, he's kind of trying to mimic Christopher Lee in his vampire movies. And we follow him to The Man with the Golden Gun. And there she is again. She gets the red ball. This is a ball gag. So in Eyes Wide Shut, we have the masked ball. So we live on a masked ball. It's a ball gag. There is no ball. It's a ball gag. We're going to watch this video real quick. I'm going to run out of tape in a minute here, but let's see. This one is funny.
Operation Crossroads and the fourth atom bomb explosion. Bikini Atoll, where 200 warships will be anchored, 140 planes, 200 goats, 200 pigs, 4,000 rats. How will this fourth bomb affect you? What do you know of this atom bomb?
I'm going to pause it right there. This is psychological warfare here. I mean, why would you have a program like this where you're telling me, oh my God, the bomb's going to kill you. What should you think about it? So here comes the guy. He's going to tell you that, how you should think about it.
The bomb will not start a chain reaction in the water, converting it all to gas and letting all the ships on all of the oceans drop down to the bottom. It will not blow out the bottom of the sea and let all the water run down the hole. It will not destroy gravity. I am not an atomic playboy.
It will not destroy gravity, and I am not an atomic playboy. I don't believe it. I just don't. I'm not buying this whole thing. So this whole video, which is a fascinating video by Soylent Green. You can find it on the Atomic Cafe. There's a lot of good videos on Atomic Cafe. And they go through the whole Bikini Island thing, and we basically go there and we tell these people, get the hell off your island, and they do a video of it, and they act, in the video, the people are like, thanking them for blowing their island up, and, how could you, if somebody comes and knocks on your door, hey, we're going to blow your freaking island to kingdom come, what do you think about that? Oh, we would love it. So watch this video. There's a million little clues in that. I'm just not buying the atomic weapon anymore. This whole movie reads like a MK Ultra programming film, and it starts with the fear right in the beginning of it. How are you going to survive the atomic blast? So, and he's the atomic playboy. I am not an atomic playboy. The hell you aren't. That's exactly what you are, an atomic playboy. So we have the crew from, this guy right here. He's Mr. Parkinson. So, gee, that fits our puzzle awfully well. He's like he's like a spokesperson now for Parkinson's. He's one of the most famous people. And she wears her hair red. I don't know if she's a real redhead, but it doesn't really matter. Here's Time After Time, and there's Douglas Trumbull, the man that's hired to do the special effects for 2001: A Space Odyssey. Here we have the dick humor, and he's wearing this lapel, makes him look like a dick with two balls. I mean, it's just ridiculous, this lapel, and he's, I mean, does it look like Kubrick is above making phallic subliminals? I really don't think so here, I mean, if this could be any more obvious. There's the clue for Nosferatu. Let's see what else we got here. Here's more subliminal. So you get red and black and checkers. So I see a red door, I want to paint it black, There's different clues when he uses colors. If he uses a red and a black, you're going to be playing checkers. If he uses white and black, you're going to be playing chess. This is a really good photograph right here. This is a very big clue when you're first working on the Kubrick puzzle and you don't know what the hell's going on. You run into an interview or an article where they talk about this gentleman right here. This is Ouija, and he gets the name Ouija because he has this uncanny ability to take pictures that turn out to be prophetic. And he reads. He's kind of like a radar from MASH, but a photographer. So he's Kubrick's special photographer. So when you see all these alchemical pictures of Kubrick smoking a cigarette next to somebody having a birthday, or whatever you see, anytime it's a picture of Kubrick, this is the man that took the picture, Ouija, the man with ESP, just like Scatman and Danny and Radar and all these people that have ESP. Scatman's grandmother had ESP. So here's Kubrick all dressed up, and he's got a shit-eating grin on his face, and he's looking at Ouija with his camera. And so this clue, when you find it, you go, gee, maybe I need to start looking at the still photos in Kubrick's work, not just his movies. And then you run it, once you find this, then you run into Look Magazine, and you're like, wow, he's got a lot of Look Magazine pictures he took. And that's how you do it. And this is one of the clues that you need to look at the still shots. And through these still shots, you get the smoking clues and all the other stuff that comes out from it. John Lennon's song, we all shine out like the moon, the stars, and the sun. What is the topic of this entire puzzle is the moon, the stars, and the sun. That's what we're talking about here. So John Lennon does, Watching the Wheels Go Round, and he does a bunch of songs that are alchemical and flat earth related. And then he's killed, at the Dakota Hotel, the same hotel where they filmed Rosemary's Baby, played by a redhead. Here you have the redhead. I don't even know why I put this in here, so I'm going to close it. That's part of that whole clue set. Here we have Biff Tannen, born April 15th. So we've got a Jackie Robinson date right off the bat with Biff. And so that's interesting. And we've got a redhead who changes between the movies, but it's always a redhead. And her last name is Wells, because we're looking for H.G. Wells. And we had a category of Scotts already. We had Robert Falcon Scott, David Randolph Scott, Apollo 15, George C. Scott, Miss Scott. I made a list of these. This is way back. This is probably video, 7 or 8 maybe. So one of the famous sayings from this movie is Great Scott. Well, the list that we made are all people that are great that are named Scott. So that really fits quite well. This is Kubrick's picture of how a monkey sees us. And so the monkey's in his cage looking at the people. And the people are in a cage, but they don't really know it. So who is dumber here, the monkey or the people? So, it's your interpretation, but my interpretation of this picture, knowing this puzzle, is you're in a cage and you don't even know it. And you think you came from monkeys. He wears a radiation suit. Isn't that interesting? And he's a spaceman from Pluto. That was the missing. I thought the dog in Danny's room was Pluto. I was incorrect. It's Goofy. So we're missing Pluto, and here he is, the spaceman from Pluto. The name of the movie originally was going to be The Spaceman from Pluto, not Back to the Future. And of course, there's all the connections to plutonium in this. And like once again, I'm not going to do Back to the Future right now. I just wanted to point that out. He's a blacksmith, and Biff Tannen's horse throws a shoe. So we got the horseshoe. It's linking into this ridiculously. And he plays Eastwood, and you got Lockwood and Woody Strode, and all the woods I mentioned before. The whole puzzle functions on whether you believe or not there's a hidden message here. The hardest thing to get over with this puzzle is that A, there is a hidden message, and B, it is so big you can't even imagine how big this puzzle is. And so he gives you believe it or not. This is also a clue to a competitor to Ripley's Believe It or Not would be the Guinness Book of World Records. So we have Alec Guinness, the man born 4/2. And it turns out Alec Guinness is born the same day as Vivian Kubrick, who was born the same day as Neil Armstrong, which is the 217th day of the year, which is the whole Neil Armstrong's born the 217th day of the year, and he dies the 237th day of the year, which is you have the room 217, room 237. And, I've put lists of Neil and Vivian Kubrick and all the other people in the date puzzle. But maybe I'll throw another one in here because it's been a while since I've done that. So let's go back to the magic thread, because